I stood among the press of people at Tyburn this morning, the 30th of January, being the anniversary of the late King's martyrdom, and never have I beheld such a spectacle as was now prepared for the traitors, though long dead, and in their graves. The bodies of Oliver Cromwell, Henry Ireton, and John Bradshaw were brought forth upon sledges, their coffins roped fast and drawn through the mire from Holborn toward the gallows, with a great many soldiers attending. The crowd was vast, and loud in their jeers and curses, some shouting that the devil might claim his own. At last, others laughed to see Cromwell's coffin shake upon the sledge as it struck ruts in the road, for the frost had broken in patches and the street was foul with filth. Many followed close, striving to lay hands upon the wood, as if to prove they had been present at his final disgrace. When we arrived at Tyburn, the coffins were taken down, the lids forced off, and the corpses drawn forth. Cromwell's body, though near 2 years dead, was yet wrapped well in cerecloth. But when they stripped it away, there was a great stench, which caused the crowd to recoil. I saw his face plainly. Dark, sunken, and with the features shriveled, yet enough remained that any man who had known him in life could recognize him still. Some said his nose had fallen away in the removing, though I cannot say if this was so. The executioner then set about his office with a grave countenance, though the multitude roared with laughter. The bodies were hung upon chains at the common gallows, swaying like scarecrows as the cold wind struck them. Cromwell's corpse spun slowly as it hung, and some threw clods of earth at it, calling him tyrant, usurper, and murderer of the king. After some hours the hangman cut them down. I confess, though I am no friend of Cromwell, I felt unease to see a man treated so after death, for what more could death take from him? Yet the soldiers made no pause. The heads were struck off with several blows, for the bodies were stiff, and the necks offered resistance. Cromwell's head was raised up by the hair and shown to the people, who cried out as though justice were newly done. The heads were then taken away to be set upon Westminster Hall, where they may stand as a warning. Thus ended Oliver Cromwell, twice buried and twice condemned, though he hears nothing of it now. Some say the nation is cleansed by this act. Others mutter it is but vengeance dressed as justice. For myself, I shall not soon forget the sight of his withered face swinging in the winter air.
This morning, going to see the hangings and the bodies taken up of Cromwell, Ireton and Bradshaw. They were carried in coffins to Tyburn, and there hanged up in their shrouds Cromwell's face I saw plainly, though it was set on the sledge. It was very much corrupted, yet the features I could discern. A great crowd was there to behold it. After they had hung for some time, they were cut down, and their heads taken off with much shouting from the people. I saw Cromwell's head held up by the executioner, and many cried out with great joy. The bodies were afterwards buried beneath the gallows, and the heads carried to Westminster to be set upon the hall. I do confess, I never saw a more strange and extraordinary sight, to see men so long dead thus used.
This morning I made my way toward Tyburn to behold the last act of justice upon the bodies of Cromwell, Ireton, and Bradshaw. Though the men are long dead, the king's command was that their treason should yet be marked upon this day, the anniversary of his blessed father's murder. I stood near the turnpike at Holborn when the sledges came into view. They were drawn slowly, each bearing a coffin roughly bound with ropes. The soldiers marched on either side, their pikes forward, though there was little need. The people followed in such great number as if it were a fair day entertainment. Many cursed the corpses as they passed, others laughed as though at a comedy. The air was sharp, and the wind carried a foul scent from the coffins. When the men appointed to the task broke open Cromwell's, I saw the body within, and confess I was taken aback. It was shriveled, darkened, and changed by the long burial, yet the shape of his brow and mouth were plainly his. Some cried that his face bore the mark of damnation. Others swore it was already half devoured by worms. At Tyburn the bodies were hoisted up upon the gallows, swaying like winter fruit. The crowd fell into a strange quiet when first they were lifted, as if struck by the strangeness of it, to see a dead man hanged as though his life might yet be taken. But soon the shouting began again, the multitude growing bold with insult and mockery. After some hours the corpses were cut down, their limbs stiff as boards. Cromwell's body was set upon a block. The executioner struck twice before the head came free, for the neck was toughened by decay. He held the head up to the throng, and such roaring I have never heard, not even at the king's coronation. I stayed long enough to see the pikemen carry the heads away toward Westminster, where they shall be set upon the hall for men to gaze upon. As I walked back, I heard old women saying the land would now be cleansed of Cromwell's curse. Others muttered that God would not be mocked, nor the dead tormented without consequence. For my part, I rejoice at the justice done, yet the sight sits uneasily with me. It is a fearful thing to see death punished beyond the grave.
This day, the bodies of Oliver Cromwell, Henry Ireton, and John Bradshaw were drawn upon sledges from Holborn to Tyburn. Upon the gallows they were hanged for some time in their winding sheets, to the great satisfaction of the spectators. Thereafter their heads were smote off and shown to the people, who gave a loud shout at the taking off of Cromwell's head. The said heads were then carried to Westminster to be set up for a public view.
On the 30th of January, the bodies of Cromwell, Bradshaw, and Ireton were taken from their graves and carried with great ceremony of ignominy to Tyburn. They were drawn on sledges through the streets, followed by an infinite crowd, who expressed extraordinary satisfaction at the spectacle. Being come to the place of execution, the bodies were hung upon the gallows, where they remained for several hours, the people showing every demonstration of joy, as if they had been seeing the punishment of living traitors. Afterwards the executioner cut off their heads, which were shown to the people, and then carried to Westminster, to be set over the great hall. The bodies were thrown into a pit beneath the gallows. This action is considered by many as a just vindication of the royal authority, and by others as a severity unworthy of the clemency which His Majesty has otherwise shown.